You're listening to 515, the Ultra Podcast, the show that invites you into the lives of people who make up the Ultra family. Here's your host for these conversations, Larry Ryan.
Thank you, Mary Jo. Welcome to another race preview episode, this time for the upcoming Ultraman Florida. And after the preview, I have a conversation with one of the competitors, athlete in profile, Jo Jenkins. So don't turn this episode off early. Joining me on the podcast today are two people that regular listeners will know very well by now. First is the race director for Ultraman Florida and Ultraman Arizona, Jen McVeay. Hey, Jen.
Hey, Larry. How's it going?
Going great. And joining us to present this race preview for Ultraman Florida coming up this weekend is the voice of Ultraman, Steve King.
Hi, Larry. Good to be with you again.
Great to have you again, Steve. Thank you very much for joining us. So let's jump right into what's going on with you guys first before the race. Let's get a quick catch up with you. Jen, I know back in season 2, episode 8, when we had you on as a guest, one of the things that we talked about was your side jobs that you do. You do a lot of race directing. You do your online teaching, and you had just gotten ready to start up your travel industry work. It's been about a year now, I believe, since you launched that. Can you give us an update on that and maybe plug yourself and tell people where to go find you?
Sure. It's been going pretty well. I've got clients here and there coming to me, and I've booked a ton of travel last year for lots of people. Everyone's starting to travel again, so that's really cool. And I'm booking cruises for people, and I've helped out a few of our athletes find lodging and minivans and stuff. So I'm really enjoying that. It's fun.
Mm-hmm. And you also have some specializations. Maybe you want to share those.
Oh, I specialize in South Africa and Hawaii, since I live in Hawaii. And I love going down to South Africa to photograph animals. And yeah, so I'm actually taking a lot of people down to Africa this summer. I'll be down there for probably a little over 2 months.
Oh,
so
excellent.
Yeah, that's going to be really exciting and fun. And it's fun for me to be able to share that with friends that want to go adventure down there with me.
Mm-hmm. And what's your website?
JennyMacTravel.com. And they can also find me on Facebook. Just search for Jenny Mac Travel and it'll find me.
Excellent. And Steve, what have you been up to over the last little while? What have you been out to any races? What's been on the agenda, and what do you got coming up other than Ultraman Florida?
Well, lots of races coming up, but nothing much since the Ultraman World Championships are being, but hopefully we'll be back in action very shortly, along with Ultraman Florida. And then there's a whole host of events throughout British Columbia. And obviously Ultraman Arizona coming up the following month as well, and possibly in Australia in May.
Oh, excellent to hear. Okay. Yeah. And we'll all be getting back together again in a few weeks to do that Ultraman Arizona preview. So
looking forward to that.
Yeah. So let's jump into the Florida preview first of all. Jen, can you hit us up with some of the stats as to how many people you got coming, how many men, how many women, what are the age groups, who are the rookies, who are the alumni, what do we got in the numbers?
Well, we've got a good group, about 35 right now, 35 racers, and those consist of 31 men and 4 women. For our age groups, we've got 2 for the women in the 30 to 39 category, 1 in the 40 to 49 category, and 1 in the 50 to 59 category. For the men, we've got 5 gentlemen in the 20 to 29 age group. Our biggest age group is the 30 to 39 for the men. We've got 10 there. We've got 7 in the 40 to 49 age group, and we have 7 in the 50 to 59 as well. And we also got 2 in the 60 to 69 age group for the men. So that's pretty exciting to see. We've got about 5 of our Ultraman Florida alumni coming back. they've either attempted or finished Ultraman Florida. So that means we've got 30 newbies who have never attempted Ultraman Florida. Although we do have some staff, some former crew. So we do have some people that are racing that are very familiar with the race. And we've got 7 athletes who have completed this distance before at one of the different ultra events around the world.
Ah, I see. And you do have people coming from around the world as well. Steve, have you taken a look at the countries that'll be represented?
Yeah, there's 13 countries that will be represented. You've got, obviously, the US. They've got the largest contingent with 18. You've got a couple from Canada, a couple from Ecuador, one who would be a first-timer from Papua New Guinea. We've never had anyone from that country before. A couple of Australians. We've got 4 from India, Uruguay, Spain, Mexico, Peru, France, Colombia, Costa Rica have all got one. And we're certainly looking forward to seeing the world being represented there in Florida.
Yeah. And just before we started speaking about this, you were also commenting on the age groups with me as we were getting ready to go to air. So what did you notice about the age groups?
Well, it's interesting that at some events, we literally have not had anyone in the 20 to 29 division for the men. So I was very pleased to see we got 5, plus the fact that we got a couple of guys in the 60 plus division. That's always nice to see. One of them 65 years of age. So we're delighted to see that.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's jump into the women's field first, Jen. Do you want to introduce us to the 4 women that will be racing at Ultraman Florida?
Sure. First up, we've got Sarah Beard. She actually raced with us last year, and Sarah's pretty amazing because she swims with no wetsuit, no matter what the temperature of the water is. And last year we had a pretty cold swim, and Sarah completed the swim with absolutely no wetsuit. She blew all of us away with that. She did have a rough day on day 3, didn't quite make that run cutoff. So we're really looking forward to Sarah coming out again this year, and we're hoping and confident that she's going to cross that day 3 finish line this year. We've also got 2 Lucys racing with us. Lucia Tapia also goes by Lucy, and then Lucy Centeno Novello. Lucia Tapia is new to this distance. Lucy Centeno Novello has raced the Ultraman distance many times. This is actually her 5th attempt at Ultraman. And she did attend our training camp in December. Okay. We're hoping this is going to be her year. So last year, she DNF'd on the swim. Her paddler wasn't having a good time out there, was having a rough time out there. So she ended up DNFing from the swim because of that. So we're really hoping that this is going to be her year.
Mm-hmm. Steve, have you taken a look at some of these races that these people have done to get themselves ready for the Ultraman this year?
Yes. So in terms of the women, you've got Amy Jenkins out of Arkansas. I think she's got a good chance to be right up there in terms of the women's event. She's got 8 Ironmen behind her, been in the sport for about 20 years and doing lots of marathons. I also think she's done 8 at the 70.3 distance. So I would expect big things from her.
Oh, Steve, if I can just interrupt you for 1 second there. Amy Jenkins is the second half of this episode. She's my athlete in profile, so I want everybody to stick around and find out all about Amy Jenkins.
Well, perhaps you can send me some of that info as well, just like the other gentleman we were referring to there that you've also got on the show. So that's neat to get that extra piece of information. And Lucy Centeno Novello, I'm delighted to see her. She's 55, the most senior female athlete in the field. But we got to remember she's done over 350 different events throughout the years. And I think it's wonderful that she's coming back. She has finished the swim before. She's done a 3:45. That was in Canada, I think 2019. Lucy Tapia, she's done a couple of Ironmen, Tulsa and Cozumel. And I believe she went to South Africa for the World 70.3 Championships. And Sarah Bird, as Jen was saying there, she is a lady who's done a triple. She's done 7 doubles. So we know she's capable. But as as Jen said, she finished or got to 46 miles on the 52.4-mile run. So she wants to be there and get that finisher's medal, and she is determined. And we know she's a good swimmer. She did a 3:43 in Florida last year.
Well, let's look at the 20 to 29 men next.
For the men 20 to 29 age group, like Steve mentioned, we're really excited to have a bunch of young men racing with us this year. The average age of an Ultraman is in the mid 40s. So it's really cool that these youngsters are coming up and they're wanting to get into this distance at a younger age. We've got Zach Powell racing with us, Everett Smulders, Francesco Magisano, Raul Turan, and Tyler Soden in the 20 to 29 year age group. Zach and Tyler, I know personally because they both attended our training camp back in December. Tyler is going to be one to be watching because he probably is going to be up in the front of the pack on most days. And Zach's pretty cool kid. And I call him a kid because I could be his mom, but Zach actually is a professional lacrosse player. So that's a really interesting thing about one of our guys.
Well, Zach is also the youngest at 24 years of age. I'm pleased he's a Canadian too. He's done a couple of Ironmen, a couple of 70.3s. And as you know, along with ice hockey, lacrosse is Canada's national game. But I love the fact that we've got about 4 athletes who have brought family with them as crew. His parents, his brother, and his girlfriend are going to be his crew. That's always interesting to me to see how the dynamics go. Tyler, I believe, has done a couple of Ironmen, Chattanooga, Arizona. He's done around 11 hours, 12 minutes, I think it was. So I would see that he has room to do quite well there. We've got a young person from India, Rahul Turan. He's a Marine commando, so you can expect him to be a toughie. I know he was the first Indian from his state to finish an Ironman. So, again, there's a lot to go for Francesco. I'm looking forward to seeing him because, as you know, he is blind. And there's only been a couple of other blind athletes who've ever completed an Ultraman. John DeMandel of Australia did it in 2016, I believe, 2015 maybe. And there was a gentleman, Jamie Raphael from Mexico, who did it in their event down there. 2016.
And Francesco was my guest on the previous episode as my athlete in profile. So if anybody missed that one, they can go back and get the full story about Francesco and his guide, Brian Hammond, who is a previous Ultraman Florida alumni finisher.
Yeah, and I think he's got Greg Plum on the group as well. And Greg finished last year after crewing for his wife, Ina.
And did you have anything on Everett?
What I like about him is he's only done one Ironman. He's got, I think, his fiance and his dad on his crew. He's just 25, but when you look at what else he's done, he's a sub 4-minute miler. And so he's gone up to ultra marathons, but it's interesting to have a sub 4-minute miler take on this challenge. So I think we'll be looking for him to maybe set a record in the beer mile the day after the event finishes.
Let's move into the next age group there, Jen.
So for our men in the 30 to 39 age group, we have, this is our biggest field. We've got 10 in this category. We've got Brendan Marinelli, Mario Miniert, Chris Zymek, Sergio Salazar, William Bench, William Torres Camelo, also known as Gio. We've got Rohit Pawar, our friend Kyle Ormerod, Reed Larson, and Carlos Poggi. So a lot of guys in that 30 to 39 age group. Kyle, I have to mention, is one of our alumni. He's raced Florida, and he just recently finished Ultraman World Championships. So he couldn't get enough of us, and he came back because he wants to try it again. The whole reason Kyle races now is because of the Ohana. So it's really nice that we have people coming back like that. He and his crew are amazing. His family crews for him. Really great group of people.
Mm-hmm.
Another one we've got is Chris Zymek. He is actually coached by one of the other athletes who will be racing, which is our former staff member, Jeremy Howard. And I hope that after Jeremy races, he will be back on the staff. We'll see about that. But it'll be fun to watch Chris and Jeremy out there battling against each other, the coach and the athlete that he's coaching.
Yes. And I also had Jeremy on in season 2. So if people want to go back and find that episode, they can find out more about Jeremy as well. Steve, when I'm looking at these, I noticed that with Sergio, he has some really interesting events that he's done. What do you know about the race resume of Sergio?
Yeah, I know he's got a personal best for the Ironman distance of 11:28. Did that in Brazil. He's 35. He's done some interesting events. The Marathon des Sables also has a half distance one, and he did that one. That's about 130K, I believe it is. I know he's also done some major swims. So there's a few people who have done very long swims. We talk about Sarah Bird. I think she did like a 35 miler one time. This guy's done a 24K swim. So, they're comfortable in getting through that, or should be. But then the others, when you look at that 30 to 39 division, as Jen mentioned, Kyle Ormerod, twice in Florida, and he's been 11th the first time. Then he got a brilliant third last year, then went to Hawaii and got a 12th place overall. And as Jen mentioned, his family comes along to crew. He's got his fiance and his niece, but this is the first time his father, William, is going to be with him as well. As far as Chris Zlomek is concerned, I agree. He could be a threat not only in that division, but potentially overall because of the great coach, Jeremy Howard, but because he's a talented man himself. He has an 11:11 PR so far in terms of a 1:11, for the swim. So he'll be a long way behind Jeremy on the swim unless something dramatically goes wrong. But he's got a 10:56 PR for the iron distance.
Yes, those two will be fun to watch going head to head. Now, Steve, I noticed that Carlos also has a kind of an interesting race resume. What do you think his chances are?
I think that this gentleman could be someone to look for amongst the top 5. He's got 11 Ironman to his credit, 21 at the 70.3 distance. He has been an age group winner in the Olympic distance as well, in his home country of Ecuador. He did race at Ironman Florida 2 years ago and was in the top 10 in his category as well. So I would see that he could possibly be up there. And I certainly look forward to seeing how things are going to unfold for him.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's move into the 40 to 49 age group for the men. Jen, do you want to start us off with the quick introductions of each of the members?
Sure. We've got Andy Malley, Jeremy Howard, Corey Carruth, Ryan Maas, Fernando Lopez, Ivan Penchik, and Mark Gallietta. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners are going to recognize several of those names because we've got a few alumni in there. We've got some former crew members. So it's becoming quite the family reunion with a lot of these guys coming back. Andy Malley did Arizona last year. And so we were really excited to see his application come through. He wanted to continue the Ohana feeling and try out some Florida. And of course, we mentioned Jeremy Howard already. We're really excited to see what Jeremy does on this course. He's very familiar with the area. He has actually been down there training since December 1st. So he's in Claremont right now as we're talking. He's been training on the course, swimming in the cold water down there. Hopefully the water will warm up before race day.
And he's got the all-star crew with him as well. Is that right?
He's got a very good crew. His crew consists of Ryan Toner, who has finished Ultraman Florida before, Caroline Bloom, who has finished Ultraman Florida and Ultraman Canada, and then Jeremy's sister, Jen. So this is a pro crew. They have crewed him in Hawaii several times. So they are ready. They all know exactly what they're doing. They've got his nutrition dialed in. So it's going to be really cool to see what this team does out there on the course, because pretty sure some records are going to be broken. It's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, Steve, can you give us some of the numbers for Jeremy?
Yeah, sure. I just want to mention, if you look at Jeremy, he's probably got the fastest PB for an Ironman out of everyone with a 9:25. But you mentioned Carlos Poggi a while ago. He's done a 9:38. You've got Doug Guthrie. He's in the 50-plus division. He's done a 9:32. Fernando Lopez has done a 9:50. But Jeremy, on the 3 occasions that he's raced at the Ironman distance or Ultraman distance, at the World Championships, he was 5th place 2011, then he came back 2015, got a 3rd, then 2017 got 2nd overall. But each time he was the fastest swimmer to exit. And so he's got a great swim time at 2:26.03. He's also been the fastest runner on one occasion at the Worlds as well. So he is the favorite going into the event. So he's crewed many times. He knows the course and is a fantastic athlete and guy all around. So I would see him potentially being the pre-race favorite going into this. You've got people like Ryan Mars from Wisconsin. Also, he's got a great team. He's got Chad Esker and Rob Hearn who are backing him up as well. And I like the idea that some people enter this race with only maybe one Ironman behind them. And that's not an easy thing to do. But if they've crewed before and have gone over the course and they know what to expect. But my guess is most of us are expecting Jeremy to come out the water in that first place. You've got Corey Karath. He's done 6 at the iron distance. He's got just under 11:40, and that's a gentleman from Papua New Guinea. So I'm certainly hoping, as we do for everybody, that they all finish, because it's nice to have new countries represented as well amongst the alumni.
Yeah, and with Fernando in this category, I know that he has, like as you said, a good Ironman as well, but he's also got a number of first place finishes in Xterra. Do you know about that part of his performances?
I do. He's won actually 24-hour mountain bike race, Xterra Nationals on 2 occasions. I think it was 6 and 4 years ago. He's won the Muleshoe race in 2019. That's an Xterra Magnolia Hills. And he actually won the Xterra World Double in 2021. So he's certainly someone to watch, because he's also very much into the tougher ones. He's actually had podium places in the Aloha Man Extreme and the Alaska Man Extreme. So he's a very competent athlete with 22 Ironman races behind him as well. So I think he could be amongst the top 3, all being well. Andy Malley, who Jen has already mentioned as well, he was 9th in Arizona. As Jen mentioned, there's no swim, but he has done a 1:05 swim for an Ironman distance, so he could be very well placed overall.
Yeah, and I know with Andy, he said that he couldn't find it within himself to apply for the Ultraman World Championship after doing Arizona, because there was no swim, and that's one of the reasons why he's doing Florida this year.
Yeah. And Mark Gallietta, that Jen mentioned, is actually, I believe, now in the 50-plus division, but he is someone who's coming back to race. He was with us previously quite a few years ago, but he came out of the swim in 2nd place that year behind a person who's one of his crew, Tom Winieski. So that's interesting to see. He's done a 2:35, but he also did end up coming 6th overall. He's got 30 Ironman to his credit, but he's also a finisher of the deck last year, which is phenomenal. And he's gone around 10:07. I think he's got quite a few family coming to support him as well.
And was he a day 1 winner at Florida as well?
He was a day 1 overall winner, yes. The first person, but a 2nd out of the water, right?
Mm-hmm. And you'll notice, Larry, with a lot of these athletes, they have alumni crewing them. And as Steve mentioned, that is genius, because they've come out and crewed this before. They're very familiar with what's going to happen out there. And so many alumni have come back to crew these athletes. I think we're probably, I haven't counted them up, but I think we're going to have 30 plus alumni crewing. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's move on to the next age category then, the 50 to 59 men.
Steve is correct. Mark Gallietta's USAT age is 50. So he's actually in the 50 to 59 category. We also have along with him Shane Duffy from Australia, Aaron Felsheim, Nanesh Vankalwala, James Scanlon, another one of our alumni, Stephen Pivnick, Craig Stocks, and Doug Guthrie. Steve, you want to tell us a little bit about some of these gentlemen?
Sure. Well, Aaron Felsheim, who's the first person in terms of race number, it's going to be number 232, I believe. He is out of Wisconsin, but he actually crewed previously as well for Elsa Pamplamata, so he knows the course, and he's done 12 Ironmen to his credit. He's got a 10:24 PR, so again, we could expect good things from him. Craig Stocks is coming back. He's done three before, a couple of in Australia and also in Canada, and he's crewed for Shane Duffy. So it's neat to see he did that at Ultraman Canada. And Shane, of course, is racing up a storm. He's done 3 in Australia, he's raced in Canada, went to the World Championship. So, and he was 16th at the World. So this will be his 4th one since May of 2022. Mm-hmm. I think the other person to watch out for beyond him would probably be Doug Guthrie, who, as I said, has done a 9:32. He's got 23 Ironmen to his credit, including 5 times in Kona, and he is a Florida resident, so that's a great thing. You've got Fernando Lopez, who we've mentioned there, but you've also got Ivan Panchik, who's been a tremendous support for the event. In terms of crewing, he's got 9 Ironmen to his credit. James Scanlon, though, there's quite the story there. He actually won in Napa last year, in 2022 at the 140.6 distance, and he's a slow swimmer. He did a 4:36 previously, but he was 9th in Florida after doing a tremendous run, winning the run. And then in Arizona, he was 2nd on the run, and that brought him up to 3rd place in Arizona. So he's certainly someone to watch big time as well. And Mark Gallietta, we've mentioned, and Nanesh Vankawala, I believe he's done 4 Ironmen, and as I think I mentioned, he's the first from his state of Gujarat to be having completed an Ironman. Now he may do the same thing in terms of Ultraman. Stephen Pivnick is a 16-time Ironman competitor. I know he's writing a book about the events he's done, but he's got Rick Van Tile, another alumni, on the crew, and Stephen has also raced in Kona before, and that was just last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and going back to Shane Duffy, I'm going to be interviewing him as an athlete in profile for Ultraman Arizona, and he's actually looking to, by the end of this year, to complete 6 of these 5:15 races within one calendar year, starting and ending with Ultraman Australia.
Well, he told me he was keeping that secret, but obviously not if it's going out on your podcast.
Might want to cut that part, Larry.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'll leave that until I do the actual interview. I don't know. He gave it to me as pre-race pre-interview information.
Yeah, no, put it out there. Let's put pressure on him.
Right.
Armando did the same with his attempt at 4, and he actually finished all 4, although sadly the last one was just 10 minutes shy of a sub 12.
Exactly. And that was a heartbreaking moment when Armando came across that finish line. But I know Armando is pulling for Shane to pull this off. The nice thing about the Ohana is everybody supports each other. So we are really pulling for Shane to finish Florida and then to finish Arizona. And then I'm not going to talk about those other things that he wants to do because it's supposed to be a secret.
All right. So let's move on to our final category then, Jen. What do we got coming up in the 60 to 69 category?
60 to 69, we've got 2 gentlemen joining us. We've got Dashrath Jadhav from India, and then we have Cameron Clements. And Cameron is from South Carolina, and so he's a Southern guy, born in Georgia, living in South Carolina. And Cameron is one of those previous crew members. So he did his research. He was actually going to try to race back in 2021, but he ended up injuring his foot, so he couldn't race. But then I sent an email out asking for crew volunteers, and he hopped in and he crewed for Adrian Ho from South Africa. So luckily his foot has healed. And so he is here to race with us in 2023. And we're looking forward to seeing him cross those finish lines.
Mm. And I know that he has an interesting race on his resume that I'm sure Steve will also find interesting. And I wonder if you picked that out, Steve.
Yeah, I think you may be referring to the Clash Miami half. There's that Florida Extreme Triathlon, which is a 3-day triathlon across the entire state of Florida. He's done that, but he also did Ironman Chattanooga and said that was a training day for Ultraman Florida. So we'll wait to see if that's going to pay off big time for him. I certainly hope it does.
Mm-hmm. Actually, the one that I was looking at on his resume was Rocket Man, which was an event held
Rocket
inside
Man,
of the Kennedy Space Center.
Right. That's the HIM events that were going on. Yes, indeed. I'd forgotten that he had done that. So thanks for bringing that to my attention. It's going to be fascinating because you've got some people who love Xterra, some people who love these extreme events, others who focus on iron, and others who've literally just done one at the iron distance. There was one person who just did a virtual as well. So, and we know Mike Morrissey had done a virtual Ultraman before he ended up finishing previously and going to the World Championships. But the other person you mentioned is Dashrath Jadhav, the Indian gentleman who's the most senior athlete in the field. He did race with us before, but he struggled after day one because his swim time was 5:19:34 and doesn't leave too much time, although he got to that finish line day one, but was not able to finish day 2 and 3. He's got 8 Ironmen to his credit, and he was the most senior Indian triathlete to do an Ironman. So we're certainly hoping things go well for him because it takes a lot of courage to come back, a lot of funds, a lot of training, and a lot of inspiration and motivation. And that's what we love about some of the athletes, and especially those who come back to celebrate other people's finishes for hopefully all 3 of the days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess we kind of started with a redemption story up in the women's race, talking about Lucy, who's making her 5th attempt, and then also now Dashrath, also trying to make a redemption story out of this race. Thank you, Steve and Jen, for providing the information today on the athletes competing in the 2023 version of Ultraman Florida coming up this weekend on February 10th through the 12th. I look forward to speaking with you both again very soon to preview Jen's other race, Ultraman Arizona, where course records are still up for grabs after last year's cancellation of the swim. So thank you, guys. Thanks once again for joining me.
Thank you, Larry.
Thanks for having us, Larry.
And everybody stay tuned for the next part of today's episode, where I will be having a conversation with Amy Jo Jenkins as the athlete in profile for Ultraman Florida. In my next episode, coming out on February the 17th, I speak with Ohana guest Mahmoud Reba. I remind you to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss any of these great guests. Here is a short clip of that conversation. You were able to reach out and get some help from the OGs of Ultraman, the 2 original winners, Kurt Madden and Artis Bowe, and you started getting advice from them to go back and race again. Tell me about meeting them, getting some advice from them, and how they've helped you to get past the island.
Yeah, definitely. Hawaii, a big island, is a magical island, and you need to have the blessing of Madame Pele and the blessing of these legends. Like, having these legends by your side is quite a blessing, a lot of strength. I met Artis Bowe in 2017 during registration, and I kept in touch with her, and she was phenomenal in actually making me understand what it is to do an Ultraman, the path to Ultraman. Earlier, whenever you see when it's world championships, you want to go compete, you want to show your time, you are this fast. Everybody has that drive. They have done this. She has done this many times. It's end of the day, it's the experience. You need to enjoy it. And she taught me how to really enjoy it at the same time, in pushing your limits. So she's she doesn't do formal coaching, but she's like she's very good at giving a wise advice.
So that's Mahmoud Reba coming up in the next episode. And now, my final athlete in profile for Ultraman Florida 2023. My next guest is one of the athletes competing at Ultraman Florida. Since 2005, she has competed in a number of Ironmans and 70.3s, and recently competed at the St. George 70.3 in both 2021 and 2022. And now she's ready to make the jump to 5:15. She is joining me today from Roland, Arkansas, just outside of Little Rock, where she is a streaker. Welcome to the 5:15 podcast, Amy Jo Jenkins.
Hi, Larry. It's nice to be here.
Well, thank you for coming and introducing yourself to the listeners. Can we get back to what I was just saying there? Can you please explain to us why you are a streaker in Little Rock?
I can. A lot of people think that's really funny. So 20 years ago, there was an announcement that a marathon was coming to town, and it was the Little Rock Marathon for the first time. And I had never even run a 5K, and I was like, oh, that sounds like fun. A marathon's coming to town. And so I signed up. And 20 years later, it has had a 20-year running, and I have completed all of the marathons. And me, along with 11 other people, have done so. So we kind of have a friendly competition going of who's going to be the last man standing. I have a good shot because I was only 25 when it first started, and some of my colleagues are a little older than that. But it's been fun. And for the 20-year anniversary, the city treated us really special, gave us some interviews, and let us start in the very front of the race, which was a little scary because people are fast. But nonetheless, there we were, ready to go. So yes, they call us the streakers.
Oh, yeah. You get the VIP treatment up the front.
Yes, we did.
And what would be your PR at this race?
Oh, my PR is like 4:20. So I'm not terribly fast. I run for fun. And it happens until last weekend was the only road marathon I have ever run not associated with the triathlon.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, totally just a fun group of people to be with.
Excellent. Now, being in Little Rock or just outside of Little Rock, I got to ask you, have you ever been to the Bill Clinton Library?
I have been to the Bill Clinton Library, but most people want to know if we know the Clintons, and we do not. Arkansas is, in fact, a big state, and we've never met.
I would not have been so presumptuous. Yes, I went just with the library.
I get asked that all the time. Yes, the library is here, and it's quite fascinating. Very cool place to visit.
Mm-hmm. So you've been doing these races since 2005. I believe it was your first one in Florida in 2005.
Yes.
But that was an important year for you in your life for another reason, because you were diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. Can you tell me a little bit about that autoimmune disease, and does it affect your ability to train or race?
Yes. So the autoimmune disease is called ankylosing spondylitis. It's a mouthful. Nothing wrong with my ankles, and it's not a dinosaur. It is kind of a rheumatic disease that affects your spine. And so ultimately it causes your spine to fuse, usually starting with the SI joint moving up. But that's just part of it. It really impacts all of the big joints of your body, knees, hips, elbows, your eyesight, and just a host of other things that make it incredibly difficult to live with. Yeah, there's no cure. And at the time, it was also not very commonly diagnosed, especially in women. So at the age of 27, it was very devastating.
Mm. And has it affected your ability to do triathlon? Because obviously you're moving all those joints, the spine, and you're in that bike ride for such a long time. Is it painful for you to do the stuff, or how does it affect you?
No, actually, it's been my lifesaver. Yes, I've always been active. So when I was diagnosed and trying to deal with that, I don't know that it impacted me tremendously. it was, I had aches and pains here or there, but it wasn't until 2016, I actually ended up contracting Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and it threw my disease into a downward spiral, and one that I never fully recovered from. And so I think
what is Rocky Mountain spotted fever?
Yes. So you get that from a tick bite. I know who gets that, right? Especially in Arkansas, but apparently I do. And I was doing a lot of trail running, so I don't know the particular tick that caused the infection, but I was running in the Little Rock Marathon, and by the end of it had gotten particularly sick and was just like, oh, just one of those days, I guess. But ended up getting progressively worse. And through a series of tests, it was determined that that's what I had contracted. And by then, a lot of the damage had already started. But like I said, it was a perfect storm because it threw my autoimmune disease into just this craziness that you couldn't even imagine. And so I was doing okay, getting by, up until then. But then after that, I was kind of put into a dead halt.
And did that actually stop you from your training and racing at that point then, or what's happened?
Yeah, so it did. So of course, in my mind, after the diagnosis, I was like, oh yeah, I'll be back out in a few weeks. But it ended up getting progressively worse, and to the point where I could not stand on my own, and I ended up in a wheelchair. I was having to rely on my husband for all of my care. And by all of my care, I mean all of my care. It was a very humbling experience. Yes. And then after being in a wheelchair for about a month, at that time, it was primarily impacting my knees. They were very swelled up, full of fluid, and they were like that way for so long that I started to have nerve damage in the area, just completely unable to function.
Oh, no.
So I eventually progressed to crutches because I couldn't balance. But that was the end of it. So yeah, I spent the majority of that whole entire year just sitting and reflecting on what I thought, once was, and trying not to get bitter about what was never going to be. That was my mindset at the time, right?
Yeah.
So yes, but
you are our athlete in profile for Ultraman Florida, so there must be a recovery story here.
There is a recovery story. So yeah, I sat there for a long time. I did have one reprieve in the middle of the year where I was like, okay, I'm going to go do a triathlon. My husband's like, no, you're not. And I'm like, yeah, I just want to feel normal again. And so I went to a local sprint triathlon and I did it. And I was so weak when I got to the end of it that I fell into the Gatorade tub that was there at the finish line. And within 2 days, I was back in the hospital again. So there, I had that retrieve. And then after that, it progressed into 17 kidney stones and just in and out of the hospital constantly. Ooh. Again, not being able to walk. And yes, my body just completely shut down. So, but I'm pretty stubborn, and I just kind of kept at it. But like I said, I had a real peace about it that was what I was supposed to do. The whole time that previous year that I was sitting and sitting and sitting and thinking and thinking, if I can share like two really big impactful things that happened to me.
Please.
The first one was really me learning to get rid of my uber competitiveness and just really rejoice and be happy for what everybody else was accomplishing. It's not that I wasn't doing that before, but I really was so excited when I saw my friends achieving their goals and doing these great things. And I remember one of them telling me that she was scared to come and talk to me about it because she didn't want to make me sad. And I was like, oh my goodness, no, like, please come tell me about it. I'm so excited for you. So that was fun.
Yeah.
That was fun just to really learn how to embrace everybody else's successes and just be truly, genuinely happy for what they were able to accomplish. The other thing I've alluded to is that I'm very stubborn and fiercely independent, like to the nth degree. I think you might find that in a lot of us athletes that you interview, but that I just cannot tell you how polarized I am in that way. So I had already was learning to have to rely on my husband to help me with a lot of things, just daily tasks.
Mm-hmm.
But when I said I had a piece about doing the race, really my relationship with God was just developing in such a unique way that after it was all over, and even now, I'm thankful for that experience. And I'm thankful that I have this disease, because if I didn't have it, I would not have learned how to trust in him for my physical strength. And I would not know where my strength comes from. Until then it was all like, oh, I'm 20 something years old and I have a strong body, and, look out, all you people, here I come. And, I would just do these random things, and I could play all the time. I could compete in on road and off road and long and short and like do all these things. It's kind of reckless almost. And then after that, it was like, okay, so like, I don't have any of those things anymore. I don't have youth. I don't have the strong body. I don't have anything. So where is my strength coming from? And, a verse in, 2 Corinthians kept coming to my mind. It was, when God told Paul that my grace is sufficient for you. Like, the answer is no, you have this and you're going to keep it. But my power is made perfect in your weakness. And I think we always think about verses like that, or thinking about calling upon these spiritual encounters when we're just mentally somehow, when we're in that dark place in a race, or where we're just so mentally exhausted with life that we don't feel like we can go on. And for me, it was like, yeah, that's all true. But what about when you have to ask for physical strength, like physical strength to go about your regular duties, and then you're daring enough to ask for physical strength to do a triathlon, and then, to do an Ironman, like a regular triathlon is just not going to cut it, right? It's just that I've gotten to experience that sweet power and that sweet relationship with God that I would not have known otherwise.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like this has actually been really good to, get you ready to be an Ultraman, because you've gone to that dark place that you've had to stubbornly get through and push your body past beyond what it wants to do. And you've also been able to accept help from other people, which your crew will be doing for you in the race. So it sounds like you're prepared to take on this challenge ahead.
Well, I like to think so. So that whole relying on other people thing, I'm having to learn that in a whole new way too, with this crew thing going on. Yeah. I mean, my crew is made up of my husband, who is just the best, and 2 very close friends. And we're kind of grassroots people. None of us have ever done this before. But yeah, so that was actually one of the things that scared me the most about signing up for the Ultraman. Is I was like, well, who's going to want to be on my crew? Like, nobody's going to want to do that for me. They don't even know the places I go sometimes in these events. Right. Like, nobody needs to be exposed to that.
Yeah.
But here they are, and they're lovely. And I'm just going to have to continue to humble myself and accept their love, because that's what they want to do.
And will your coach be coming along as one of the crew members as well?
He will. He is going to be my kayak guide, and he's just a very wise man. His name is Jerry Daniel, and he owns a company called Two Rivers Multisport that's here in Roland. Roland is a very small town in Arkansas, but I'll tell you, we've got the athletes living in this little town. I mean, if I could just tell you. And so Jerry's one of them. Jerry's an not ex, I guess he just was in 2015, the age group national champion in the long course. And we've been friends for years, and he is very wise. And I very much enjoy learning from him.
And has he had any experience with the Ultraman or other stage races to be able to coach you through that? Or are you learning that part together?
We're learning that part together. Now, he has crewed for some ultra runs here locally, but never an Ultraman. Mm-hmm.
And you haven't gone to crew for anybody yet?
I have not. I don't even know anybody that I could have done that for. So, but so I'm looking forward to getting to know people, and I very much hope to have that opportunity sooner rather than later to be able to crew for someone.
And do you have any fears leading up to this race? What's your biggest fear about trying to do this race?
Oh, that's a good question. My fears are probably pretty silly. Had you asked me prior to this 2016 experience, like my biggest fear would have been like, oh, what if I fail? I've done that like a million times now. You live to see another day. It's not the end of the world. Yeah. My two biggest fears are, one, I've already mentioned, when I get into that place and my true self gets revealed to my dear friends and my husband.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a lone wolf when it comes to training and that kind of thing. And so I've never really let anybody into that part of me. And it's, I don't think they're going to be able to escape. Not that you have to go there and stay there, but I think everyone gets into that dark place at least once.
Yeah.
Throughout a race of that distance. And then I got to tell you, I'm a little nervous about the run piece because I have never even come close to running 52.4 miles, and that's scary.
Yeah. With this idea of not really knowing anybody in the Ohana yet and stuff like that, have you tried to reach out to anybody? Like, are you in the support group on Facebook? Have you been asking questions to people? Have you been emailing people? Because everybody's pretty friendly and would probably be, more than happy to give your crew some tips and stuff like that. Have you done any reaching out?
I have. So interestingly enough, like right after I sent in my application for Florida, there is a lady who moved to Roland who was just about to compete in Ultraman Arizona.
Oh, yeah.
And so turns out we work at the same place. And so I have definitely picked her brain a few times, and she's been talking to Jerry, my coach, about some things that she has. Our schedules are both very busy. She's a physician, and it's very hard for us to get together and train. But yes, she has offered quite a bit of advice so far. Her name's Julie Riley. So that was her first go of it in Arizona earlier this year. So I've loved following her journey and listening to her stories and hearing about her experiences and what she thought her weaknesses were and how she conquered them and that kind of thing. And yes, I'm on the Facebook group, and I am every day looking for any sort of information that's on there. I had the question about, do we wear multiple pairs of running shoes or do we wear one pair? But somebody beat me to asking it. So we have that. And, there's a lot of chatter about how many different bike parts of certain things that we need. And so I'm taking very detailed notes on that and, water temperature, air temperature.
It's always good to have extra parts and not need them.
Yes. Yeah. So it's interesting. I've been in the Ironman world for so long. There's this nice little formula, and like, I know exactly what to do. And I don't want to say I don't get nervous, but I get, I just go to the races and enjoy myself. And I feel like I've entered the whole beginner stage of something again with this Ultraman. And I'm, again, having just to allow that to happen and to learn from everybody else and, just ask questions and listen and not be shy.
And what was it that drew you to the Ultraman? Because you're saying you don't really have a connection to anybody in it at this point. So what was it that brought you to the Ultraman family? Like, how did you discover it?
Yeah. So my husband, Jeff, and I embarked on this journey for plant-based eating 3 years ago. And I was sold immediately and never looked back. I think at the time he was sold, but he was still looking for some connections with other athletic men, like to kind of be like, hey, this is okay. You're going to be fine. And he was reading all kinds of things. So he came across Rich Roll's book, Finding Ultra,
of course,
for the purposes of, being encouraged that he was going to be okay, as a middle-aged man, going on this pathway. And I remember him reading the book, and he's like, I probably shouldn't give this to you, but, you really need to read it. I think you'd really like it. And I didn't even know what Ultraman was. And I was like, okay, sure. And I don't really like to read. So I was like, yeah. But I picked it up and I started to read it, which I think like so many other people have, with the thoughts that I was going to learn about plant-based eating and endurance sports. But instead, I learned about this thing called an Ultraman. And when I was reading the plant-based thing, I don't even remember I didn't think I learned anything, because I just remember reading all of his descriptions of his life and his experiences. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like there's at least one other person in the world that feels these things or that has had these experiences. And I was like, yes, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go be an Ultraman just like Rich did, because like we're related probably. He doesn't even know it. That's how close I was like, yes. And, of course, my husband's going, yeah, that's kind of what I thought was going to happen if you read that book.
Yeah.
So anyhow, that's what gave me the idea that this was a good idea. So I've read it like at least 5 or 6 times, like gleaning for information that I could. Also recognizing I'm not Rich Roll, I'm Amy Jo with a chronic illness from Arkansas, but that's okay. I don't think I'm going to have some of these breakout things, or when he talks about his paces and stuff, I'm like, yeah, I don't even do that in a sprint triathlon, so that's okay. But his just his approach and his life experiences and things that have happened to him, and how he approaches racing and everything, I just found to be incredibly inspiring. And I have never built my way up to any race. I'm always like, yeah, let's just go do it. And so we'll just give it a try.
That's awesome. Now, how has COVID affected your ability to get out and train and be with other people with an autoimmune disease? Have you had to like shutter in more than the regular person, or are you safe on that front?
Yeah, so at first I did, because we knew very little about the condition. So we certainly didn't want to take any risks. So yeah, for the first 3 or 4 months in 2020, I pretty much stayed home. Mm-hmm. But, Arkansas is a fairly rural state, and you can get outside a lot and not ever encounter a person.
Right.
And so, so in that regard, I guess I was lucky, because I was not shut inside all the time. I live right on the Ouachita National Trail. You can go for miles and miles and miles and never encounter a bird. I mean, it's really, and there's just lots of areas like that. And so,
the only thing up there are ticks, apparently.
Yeah, lots of ticks, and coyotes and things in the morning with their beady eyes staring at you through the forest. But, which, that was a real blessing that we, I didn't get to train with friends a lot or anything like that, but my husband and I trained together for a lot of things. And we were never, very fortunately, never confined to the indoors at all, because we live in this great state where there's just not a whole lot of structure in a lot of places.
Yeah. Well, Amy, I don't know if you've been listening to these other athlete profiles I do, but I usually try and talk a little bit about the sports background, and then we do a transition round for 2 minutes where we do some rapid fire, and then we learn a little bit more about your personal life, if you're comfortable with that.
Sure.
Are you ready for the transition rapid fire then?
Sure.
All right, great. Question number 1. What is the favorite event you've ever done?
The Greater Pittsburgh Triathlon. And it was, so I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, just a town just north of there. That was where I was born, and my parents still live there.
Now, as we're recording this, it's just a little before Christmas. Do you have any new gear on your wish list for Christmas?
Oh, my new gear just arrived. I got a new bike. I got a Cervelo P5, and it has all the things on it. And we ordered some wheels, and they have pink stickers on it, and I'm very happy.
And how important is it for you to look good while you're racing? Do you have a favorite kit that you wear, or a lucky kit?
Oh, yes. Looking good is incredibly important, especially if you end up like not faring so well. You want to make sure that you look nice when, you're in the ambulance or wherever. So, yes. So yes, I like to wear Sparrow triathlon clothing. And before that, Waddy Inc. triathlon.
What advice would you give your younger self?
Oh, my younger self was a mess. Yeah. I would tell my younger self not to sweat the small stuff. I would say to work hard and play even harder.
Last question then. What is something that you are good at that most people who know you don't know you're good at?
I don't know that I'm good at it, but I can ride my own motorcycle.
That's it for the transition round. We'll get into a couple of these more personal questions now to get to know you a little bit better. You've mentioned that you live with your husband Jeff. What else does the home life look like for you? Do you have any children, any fur babies? What's going on in that house?
Yes, we have a fur baby. I call her my soul dog. Her name is Eva Fiona Jenkins. She is a Dogo Argentino. She just celebrated her 5th birthday, and she is phenomenal. She runs with us and hikes with us and snuggles with us, and she's just the best.
And you were mentioning that Jeff does some outdoor activities with you as well. Does he do triathlon?
He does do triathlon. He has done 2 Ironmans. When we get to that point and we're both training together, things sometimes get a little tense, but we make it through. Jeff and I actually met riding bicycles. Nearly 15 years ago, I showed up for a group ride, which I don't normally go to on my tri bike, but someone at work was like insisting that I go. And so I get to this place and I can't find her anywhere. And then up beside me comes Jeff in his car with his fancy road bike, forgets all his water for a 60-mile ride and and here we go. So I was like, who is this guy?
I don't know if this is the guy you want for your crew chief if he forgets to bring water.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it was planned. I don't know. But, I didn't know where we were going. And so I was just like very focused on not letting that last bicycle in the A group get out of my sight. And this went on for like 40 some miles. And then finally, I never even looked behind me. And then Jeff comes pedaling up. He's like, "Hey, do you need a break?" And I was like, "Yes, that would be nice." But anyhow, the rest is history. We've now been married for 13 years, almost 14. And we discovered that day that we had a mutual friend. And so that's how we were able to reconnect afterwards. But yeah, that's how we met. And so that's our primary passion to do together is to ride.
That's a good meeting spot. And what is it that you do for work?
Yeah, so my whole career up until last year at this time was in clinical research. but I work at the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences now in the Cancer Institute as the Associate Director for Administration. So I still dabble in the clinical trials world a bit, but mostly administration these days.
So what kind of duties would that position have then? Do you have to go out and get money for research, or what is it that you do?
Yeah, no, thankfully I don't have to do that. Yeah, so we are pursuing something called NCI designation, and my job is to position the Institute and make sure that all of our activities are in line with what that's going to require. And then, to do whatever my boss tells me to do so that he doesn't have to do it. So that's what I do.
And what's an NCI designation?
So that's in the United States, the NCI is the National Cancer Institute.
Okay.
And there are various designated cancer centers around the country, but there is not one in Arkansas. The closest one to us is 5 or 6 hours away. So to get that level of expert care for our patients, especially for research, we sometimes have to send them away, and we don't want to do that. So we are working to meet all of the requirements to get that designation so that the people of Arkansas have a place right here that they can come to.
Okay. And is your university working on any kind of breakthrough stuff that we might hear about in the future toward cancer research?
Always, but I can't tell you yet because it's all under patent protections and all these other things. But yes, you will. If you haven't already, you will be hearing a lot from us in the future.
Okay. Good to know. Generally, people like yourself, lifelong academics or people that work in that field, they tend to be lifelong learners as well. So what's something that you still want to learn?
Oh, goodness. Yeah, I'm one of those people that hasn't met something that I don't want to learn. That's how I get myself into these predicaments. I'm always like, oh, yeah, that looks like fun. And then I get into it and I'm like, oh, no, what did you do? What have you committed to? What have you gotten yourself into? Yeah, that's a good question. I've been so focused on swimming, biking, and running for such a long period of time. I guess if I were to learn something new, I would like to learn to knit and crochet because I see a bunch of people doing that at work. That's often a thing that cancer support groups do together, and fascinated by it. So maybe when I'm in my downtime resting after the Ultraman, I could get some of the ladies to teach me how to do that.
Yeah, and you can make yourself a nice little tri-top.
Yes, with a matching hat and matching gloves so that I look nice when I'm on the course.
Okay. Well, when you're not doing triathlon, what other sort of hobbies do you partake in, or activities do you do?
Yeah, our favorite thing to do is we have a Sprinter van. We're all into the van life kind of thing, and we like to go camping. We call it BLM land that the Bureau of Land Management holds in the country, and you just go on it, and there's no hookups or you don't have to pay or anything like that. Yeah. And so we just boondock for days. Our favorite place to go is the desert. And just hang out and enjoy the peacefulness and the quietness. And so we hike and run and do all these kind of things. But we have been traveling quite extensively and could do that for a long time if we ever had the opportunity.
And will you be decking it out as your crew vehicle?
Yes, we will. We already have permission. So.
No, those Sprinters are probably a little oversized, but it'll be good for holding all those extra bike parts.
It will. I will. And we have a friend that built us a custom bike rack to put inside it that fits our bikes. So we do not even have to have our bikes on the outside.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to be looking for your crew when they need bike parts. The big van, we'll have lots.
Yeah. Or when they need a bathroom, we'll have that too.
You mentioned earlier that you were looking at plant-based diets. Is that something that you've stuck with? Is that where you are now in your life?
Yes. So it's 3 years in November. We kind of just quit cold turkey. Various reasons. Trying to manage an autoimmune disease is hard, especially one that's not curable. And drugs help, but they don't do it all. And a diet helps, even though it's not going to do it all. So yeah, being on a plant-based diet has kept the inflammation in my body down. So I can stay off of a lot of medications that I was on previously, so that when I do have a flare or I do go through a bad time, I actually have somewhere to go. I'm just not like maxed out on everything all the time. So that's been one of my biggest motivators to do it. But it's fantastic, and I never really say never, but no, I'll never go back. Like it is perfect.
Yeah. Do you have like a favorite website or a cookbook that you would suggest for people that might want to be trying out the plant-based diet?
Yes. And so before COVID, I knew how to make cereal, and that's about it, really. But we couldn't, dine out and have all this stuff during COVID. So we discovered a company called Forks Over Knives. And so they not only teach you how to eat in a plant-based way that's healthy. You can not eat meat and eat a pretty poor diet.
Yeah.
But they also have all kinds of recipes that you can follow, and an app where you can like do your grocery list and everything. So that's what we use.
Oh, yeah.
And we're never bored with the recipes. We have favorites that we repeat, but there's new recipes all the time. And through that, we've learned how to cook, and we've learned how to eat out, and all those sorts of things.
And now, what is your best dish? What do you make?
Oh, I think that's called Thai chickpea almond curry. That's my favorite, and I think it's what I make the best.
Oh, that sounds good. That sounds good. Well, thank you very much for joining me today and doing this athlete in profile. I know sometimes when I ask people to do these things, they're like, oh, but I'm not a pro athlete. And it's like, no, that's not the point of these things. These are like, we know that people that are coming to Ironman in their age category or Ultraman are just, a lot of people are just looking to finish and not be the world champion. So thank you for taking the time and joining me and introducing yourself to the other people that are listening and that are part of this group.
Well, thank you. And if you're out there, I will get to meet you. I can't wait to get to meet you. That sounds like the most fun part of the whole adventure.
Excellent. All right. Thanks again.
All right. Thanks, Larry.
Hey, if you liked what you heard today, please tell a friend and be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We'd appreciate it if you'd rate and review the show while you're there. Drop the names of the people you think we should interview, and we'll get in touch with them and make that happen. Thank you for listening to 515, the Ultra Podcast, a production of 55 Enterprises. Now really, go subscribe now before you forget.